Hello?
Hello there, is that Robbie McKelle?
Yes.
Hi, it's DJ Gloss here from Sound Fusion Radio London. How are you?
Hey, good. How are you?
Oh, very good indeed, thank you. And lovely to hear your voice. Absolutely lovely. Thank you thank you for agreeing to allow us to talk to you today. That's absolutely lovely. Thank you very much for that.
No problem.
That's great. I'm guessing you're in France somewhere.
Yeah, I'm in Paris. I have a few days off until our next couple shows.
Wow. Well, that's a nice place to be. And
yeah, it's not bad. I mean, there could be worse places, right?
Yes, definitely. Absolutely wonderful. So there you go. So can I start throwing a few questions at you? Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Wonderful. Well, I really wanted to know everything there is to know about Robbie McKelle and the Flytones. Tell us how it all sort of came together and how you got to where you are now.
Well, it was kind of just a natural evolution of where the music was going. I was doing a little bit more blues and jazz stuff, and I really wanted to get back to my roots of R&B and also write more original music and record more original music. So the Flytones are basically just a group of guys, a band that I put together a lot, like over the last, 4 or 5 years or so, and decided to give them that name because when I did the first soul album, they had quite a influence. I wrote a lot of the songs with the keyboard player and the bass player, and so I wanted to kind of include them in the title of the project because I felt they were, they had kind of a lot to do with the sound and the direction of where it was going. So, and then we just the first album that we recorded together was called Soulflower, and that went really well for us, and I really liked working with the band. So we did a second one, and I wrote more of the stuff with a few different guys in the band, and we just went back into the studio. But we went to Memphis for the Heart of Memphis album, so that was cool because the band and I were I'm from upstate New York, but they're all from New York City. So,
yeah.
Yeah. So we went to Memphis to record, and that was it was fun. It was nice to be out of the city, in the studio. It was good for them too because they didn't have to get anywhere. We just kind of hung in the studio. It was nice to be able just to be there, only focusing on that.
Fabulous, absolutely fabulous. And of course, actually going to Memphis, there's so much more to that than just being in the studio. It's the whole feeling of it. It's the whole atmosphere of it. It's the influence of it. I read quite a bit in your bio about that, about the experiences of going there, about going to Stax and that kind of thing. The Isaac Hayes, Al Green sort of thing. Tell us more about that.
Well, it's true. I mean, I wasn't really... I didn't know what to expect because I had visited Memphis before I went to record just to meet up with Scott Bomar, who was helping produce the album. He lives there and has a studio there, and obviously I didn't really know what to expect. Of course, I knew about Stax and Sun and all the studios and the music and everything there, but there was this feeling that I had when I arrived there and kind of got to spend some time, like, just, it's so different from where I live, and Memphis is being in kind of the South, and with all the history of the music and also the civil rights movement that happened there.
Indeed.
There's like a really deep feeling that's kind of undeniable. You can't really, for me anyways, I was kind of overwhelmed with emotion, and I wasn't really sure what the emotions were. A lot of it was gratitude for many things. It was just weird, like, to walk past to go to the studio every day. I walked past the hotel, the Lorraine Hotel, where Martin Luther King was assassinated, and it was just pretty heavy. I guess if you see it every day, you start to think like, okay, well, whatever, it's there. But for me, it was just like the time that I spent there and just to walk past that every day to go to the studio, it's just such a reminder of, you know, the pain and the struggle that people went through, not only in Memphis, but everywhere. And it was kind of a, you know, one of those reminders that you have in my life today, where I'm like, my life's pretty easy compared to, you know, people who have, you know, lived before me.
Indeed.
And not only, you know, civil rights people, but, you know, musicians, they had really difficult lives. It was very different back, you know, in the 50s and 60s, and really wasn't that long ago, you know, when you think about it. But the being able to go and really spend some time at the Stax Museum and, you know, talking to some of the people that lived in Memphis and hanging with the musicians there, the local musicians and stuff, it really put me in a different place and got me really thinking about, you know, a different things when I was recording, and it really felt like Memphis, you know, to be living, to be there in that atmosphere, you know, hanging with the local people and, you know, eating the food and, you know, just people, they are really nice down there, you know, they are very southern and friendly. Yeah, so my experience there, I loved it, and I think it's a great city, and I really enjoyed recording there.
Yes, you know, because I think it's the whole package, isn't it? It's being there, it's being part of it, it's being in that atmosphere. You know, you called the album there Heart of Memphis, and you know, now I can really get underneath why. That's wonderful. It's just, you know, it's got such a It's such a rounded, it's such a full sound that you have there. Listening to the album, it's just got that kind of completeness.
Thank you.
You know what I mean. It's sort of it's all there, if you know what I mean. It's very rich and very in keeping with what you're talking about, and you know, I can equate the two very nicely now, having spoken to you.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I mean, the goal was not to make like a throwback or a retro type album, but the goal was, you know, to have new contemporary songs that were obviously influenced by the sound of Memphis, and, you know, the production part makes it sound a little bit throwback because we wanted to have the real, like, we wanted to have it be recorded and produced kind of like how it was, and how they still do records in Memphis. And, you know, the cool thing about being there, too, is that, you know, I've recorded in New York and L.A., and I've lived in many cities. And the thing about Memphis is it's just such more of a relaxed environment. When I'm in New York, I always feel like it's such a grind, you know. I mean, there's a different energy, and it's great for certain things, but... You know, it's just New York. It seems it's just hard to kind of break through and get out, and everybody's a singer and a writer or an actor or an actress, and it just seems like this pool of, which can be very inspiring, but also sometimes it can be really like depressing because you're just like, oh my God, I'm one of like a million people, you know, doing this. So I think the cool thing too about being there and being able to have the opportunity to spend a week, 2 weeks there and record was to get out of that that scene, and that energy is different. It's a different, more laid back thing, and it allowed the music to be kind of what it was. And I listen back to the album now, and I think about how slow some of the tempos are, and because we've been touring with the music, and we pick up some of the tempos for live show, you know, for the live concert. And so when I hear it back, I'm like, oh my God, it's so slow. I mean, it's cool, but I don't think we would have arrived at the same tempos if we were recording in New York, for example, because, you know, you get off the subway, you get to the studio, you're like wound up, it's just a different thing. So, you know, everything everything goes into the pot and makes it come out to be what it is, and everything is definitely important, all the ingredients.
Yeah, I can understand. Same in London, you always feel like you're 10 minutes late for the next thing you're supposed to be doing, it's always a bit like that, whereas in Memphis I can imagine it being considerably more laid back. It's certainly, from the feel of the music, that's where it's at. And if your aim was to create a contemporary sounding but brand new album of sort of new tunes, if you know what I mean, and having a new feel to it, then you absolutely smashed it, because that's exactly what you've done. And I listened to your first track some weeks back, I suppose about 6 or 8 weeks ago, and I just went, wow, I've missed this. How did I miss this? I'm so pleased that it came to us.
Oh, thank you. Cool. Yeah, we're still trying to, reach out to some people, because it's been because most of my success came several years ago with the traditional jazz thing. So it's difficult to change gears in this business. People still think that I'm, singing jazz or whatever, and it's been, 5 years since I've done like a straight ahead film. But it's not a long time in the music business. It takes people, quite a while to kind of, get hip to what you're doing, and so I'm grateful to have people finally discovering it, and we're really happy to be coming to the UK next week, because it's been a while since I've been there, and a little bit of a challenge to get back. So it's been. We're excited.
Very much looking forward to you coming over, and hopefully we can get to see you, which would be really nice. We'd love to do that. But that's absolutely great. And I'm going to make some inquiries and see if we can get along to come and see you, because that would be really good. And I'd love to see you guys live.
Well, let us know, and again, we're gonna. Well, probably we're gonna be at the Jazz Cafe the 19th. So,
yes. Yeah.
But we're hoping we have a good turnout. We need some people there so that we can come back. I do have quite a few people who hit me up on the internet and say, "When you coming to London? When can you come here? Can you?" So we're finally coming. So I hope they're going to be coming.
Well, the Jazz Cafe is a fab venue, and I can see you guys up there on the stage. I can hear you in the Jazz Cafe already. It's got a feel all of its own, as you probably know. And that would be really great. Going back to the point you made about artists changing gears and that kind of thing, in my experience, it's usually not the artist that can't change gear, it's the people that follow them that are a little bit reluctant to embrace that. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think sometimes that's the problem as well. I mean, I think people get hooked on what they hear, and then they want to hear that, and they want to keep hearing that, and which, I totally, I can get it, but that's why so often in music you have an artist that just keeps putting out the same type of an album because they're afraid to lose their fans, So that can be a challenge, but, a lot of my fans, I have a lot of fans who have stayed with me from, like, the first album, and my first album was, like, a jazz big band album, so it couldn't be further from what I'm doing now. And when they come and see the live show, I've always been pretty explosive on stage and always adding in blues and like something soulful. So I think they can really understand, the way that it has evolved. So the live show always is a savior for that, for me as an artist, because my fans, they like to keep coming back, and I always like try to do different music and different types of shows. But yeah, it's difficult, and I think, we're kind of, as artists, we are slaves to sometimes like the press and journalists and what we can get out to people. And if sometimes, if you get in, some journalists, they or whatever, they don't want to really, they also have kind of can have closed minds sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's a challenge, and either you're going to stay and do something. For me, it was like, I'm going to stay and do the same thing for the rest of my life and be wishing I was doing something else. Or I take the chance and, do what I want to do. And for me, that means being a true artist, being authentic to yourself, and trying to continue to create something new. And those are the challenges because, you know, at the end of the day, it's a product, you know,
Yes.
that someone is trying to sell. And those are the difficult barriers between art and, you know, selling something, or music and selling something, because, you know, there's a lot of wonderful artists out there who never get heard, you know. So
I agree.
yeah, so it's just trying to find the middle ground there that you can feel good about, and obviously still trying to work and keep going. But I need to be, you know, true to myself, because if I had to walk out on stage and sing songs that I really didn't want to be singing, or, you know,
it's not the
people
same.
feel that, people can sense that. It's not, for me, it's not how I want to live my life. But
I think, you know, that's so the right way to approach it, Robin, because, you know, the only person that has to live with you for the rest of your life is yourself. So why not do what you want to do and embrace what you want to embrace? Because, you know, it's your life, you know. That's the way I see it. I think it's wonderful that people can go off on that creative thing and say, you know what, I'm just going to do this because this is where I think I need to go, you know?
Right.
Yes, I think that's
and yeah, you got to take those chances, because if you don't, you never know, you know. And I think I believe that's what being an artist is, you know, is taking the risks that, you know, other people don't take. You take it to further your, you know, to evolve your creativity, to evolve in yourself, and it's a challenge. So
yeah, that's
always a challenge.
Yeah.
It's never really easy. It doesn't come easy. I can tell you that.
Well, you know, if it was easy, Robin, I guess everyone would be doing it. So we best leave it to the experts and those that know what they're doing, which is yourself. And, you know, that's lovely. Well, I wanted to ask you about sort of the beginning of your sort of interest in music from very young. I mean, how did you and music come together? What was the thing there?
Well, I grew up in a very musical household because my mother was she's a singer, and she played guitar and piano, and
Wow.
and so there was always music in our house, and she kind of just nurtured that. And I always had a love for music. I started playing piano when I was really young, I don't know, 4 or 5, and I was singing, you know, when I was, she says, before I could talk. So I mean, you know, probably
Wonderful.
just, you know, I get it now, you know, as you know, just making the noises, but you know, she said I was singing, and so. Sorry, I don't know if you can hear that, but someone's doing construction. Can you hear that noise?
I did. I heard it in the background. Yes, indeed.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I can't do anything about that, but hopefully they stop soon. So it was, you know, a lot of music. I did, like, I sang and played piano, and of course I was in the band in school and music theater. I got into acting, and I took dance, and I kind of, you know, I was just one of those kids who really loved being on stage and being a part of, like, the musical, you know, thing at school. And fortunately, we had a really great music department where I went to school.
Yes.
So, yeah, and then, you know, my parents were very nurturing of that. They never really pushed me to do anything I didn't want to do, but they definitely encouraged, and, you know, in a gentle way. They were never like stage parents, like, you know, they drove me to all my lessons and to all my concerts and everything, but they didn't, you know, they weren't like, you know, shoving me into doing something that I wasn't sure I wanted to do, you know. So
Supportive parents, but
yeah,
not pushy.
so it's more my decisions of wanting to do things. So.
Well, I think that's absolutely wonderful. And don't worry about the construction. You're coming through much louder than it is, so no problem.
Okay.
We can hear you clearly over the top of it, so don't worry.
Okay, good. Because I can hear them clearly.
It's always worse when you're in the room, but honestly, you're coming through absolutely crystal clear on our mixer here,
Okay.
So that's wonderful.
Well, I have, you know, several different areas of my life because I've taken so many different paths and streets to get to where I am, so I have many different, you know, memories of things. But, the first time I ever really saw a concert was, I think I was around 10 or 11 years old, and I went to see Whitney Houston.
Wow.
And I remember just feeling like, I just remember going up to the stage. It was the first time I ever saw like a huge stage with like all the equipment and the microphones and everything. And I just stood there, and I remember having like tears in my eyes because I was like so excited, because I was like, that's what I want to do,
Yeah.
But I was young, and I didn't want to show, like, I didn't know what I was feeling, and I didn't want to like cry in front of my mom and dad, but I'm sure they saw it. But I just remember feeling like, wow, this is so cool, and that was something that made me just, I want to do that. I want to be, like a singer like that, because I did a lot of theater, and I was also studying opera, so I was going to go into opera when I was 18, and then I realized, like, I don't know, this is not me, I don't want to do this. So that was a nice, I always remember, I just can even remember where I was standing and at the theater that we were at. It was like an outdoor amphitheater thing. And things like that. And I always love, I remember the first time when I had a show, when things really started getting, going well for me. I had a concert in Paris at the Olympia, and it's a really famous theater here, and everyone has played there. Edith Piaf and James Brown. I mean, there's several, just everyone. It's one of the oldest theaters in Paris. It's a large theater, and I remember my parents came to see it, and there was like nobody there. The concert was going to start at like this, I don't know, 8 o'clock or something, and at 7:45, they're sitting up there, and there's no one there. Well, there's like a few people, but it's like a 2,000-seat theater. And I remember them saying, we were getting so worried because there was nobody. And then, within 5 minutes, it was just full. The place was full. And so anytime when my parents are in the audience, I just have such happiness to be on stage, because, they've done so much for me.
Oh, that's beautiful. Oh, lovely.
Yeah, and just something feels different, to be, to know that they're in the audience. It's cool, and they've come on tour with me a few times. It's been fun.
Wonderful. So. Sounds absolutely fabulous. And so, what sort of tunes, what sort of music were you listening to as you grew up? What was your sort of, what did you go and dance with your friends?
Yeah, well, I grew up in the era of Michael Jackson, Whitney Houston. Aretha was on the radio. Natalie Cole had a pop hit. So really, I was just a normal kid. I didn't really listen to anything that was that eclectic or anything. I was more of like a pop R&B kid, Stevie Wonder, things like that.
A wonderful set of A-listers you've just quoted, so there's nothing, everything's wonderful there. So
the thing is when I was a kid, the things that were on the radio, the musicians were amazing musicians. It's like Stevie Wonder, Michael Jackson, Whitney Houston, Aretha Franklin. Though even in the 80s, it's like, okay, they're wonderful artists because they open the door and they lead you to the other stuff. You start listening to like the old Aretha because you discover who she is, and then the old Michael Jackson and Jackson 5, and then you get into the Motown thing, whatever. So it's totally different from when a kid says today, like, yeah, I grew up listening to the radio, because today on the radio you might have, one or two artists that actually is like, singing a song that they wrote with a melody, and most of the music now is, it's just a different generation. It's a different type of music. I don't want to say it's not good, but I don't think we have a lot of artists on the radio that you can compare to, the ones I just mentioned.
I think a lot of the artists that should be on the radio nowadays don't get on the radio nowadays.
I totally agreed. It's not that they don't exist. It's just they're not. It's not commercial anymore in a way. And hopefully we have a return to that at some point.
Well, that's where stations like ours kind of like to come in the door and say,
Yay.
do you know what? There is something else. You're missing something, guys. Come and have a listen to this. And that's what we like to do. Yeah,
it's really important because that's the one cool thing about also there are pros and cons of the internet these days. But honestly, like one of the good things for it is that people can hear music that they wouldn't have been able to hear because it's so accessible.
Yeah.
But also in saying that, because technology makes everything so easy for you, it just says, here, if you like this, you should listen to that. And if you don't really have to do much research, on it. So we tend to just listen or like whatever someone, whatever pops up on our screens or whatever. It's just a weird time for music and arts, but I do think we are having a little bit of a swing back to
absolutely, yeah. I think people are voting with their feet away from commercial radio now because they're realising that they're being fed. They're not actually eating what they want to eat. They're actually being fed what they're being given. And it's very easy for me to sit here and say that as an owner of an independent radio station, but there are other things. So many wonderful, talented people like yourself and so on are being missed in the mainstream, and this, I'm afraid, is where the talent is. This is where that raw, wonderful talent is.
Yeah, it's definitely difficult to. And that's why when I said, it's difficult to actually access, fans and things, because there are less, outlet. There aren't as many outlets, and even if there are the outlets, it's difficult, like an independent station like yourself, to get the same, to have the same effect as like a major commercial, station or something, because of just the way that the way the business is set up.
Yeah.
It's really difficult. I mean, you can succeed, but it takes a lot of drive and determination, and it doesn't happen quickly for sure. So it's a long road. And my manager is always telling me, like, you're still such a young artist. You only have 5 albums out. I mean, really, truly, And I'm thinking, 5 albums, Jesus, I'm getting old here. But
5 albums, you've got ages to go with it. Wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, really, I see, what he's saying, but you have to sometimes be patient. And there's always those days that feel, like crap, you just think, like, why am I doing this? What the heck am I doing? And then you wake up the next day and you're like, you just get on with it and you do it because that's what you do.
Yeah, and you smile and the world takes on those rosy glasses again and you carry on,
Yeah.
Oh, it's great. Absolutely wonderful, Robin. It's been lovely talking to you. The last sort of question, I guess, is could you point our listeners and your fans at your social media, your website?
Yeah.
You've got a fabulous website. How to buy and where to buy your music and just everything that's Robin McKelle, everything. The
important stuff.
All the important stuff.
Yeah, you can, of course, you can visit me at Facebook /Robin McKelle. I've got the website, which is robinmckelle.com. And Instagram and Twitter, all the same, Robin McKelle /Robin McKelle. You can Google it, you'll find me. I'm there. And for the CD, you can buy it directly from the website or iTunes. I think Amazon. It's available online, and it should be in stores as well. But for those of you who are like super fans and you want a signed album or something, I do that, so you can get that from the website, and all the back catalog and everything too. So robinmckelle.com.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Robin. It's been so lovely to share all this wonderful time and hear the stories, and I feel like we could probably chat for another 40 minutes, but I'm not going to do that to you. Probably we could. If you do get a chance to come to the show, yes. Please come by and say hi. I'd love to put a face to the voice. Love to. And, I'd love to get a photo done with you for the radio station.
Yeah, that would be great. And
have a wonderful day in Paris, and just
thank you very much. And I will hopefully see you in a week or so.
Absolutely, wonderful. And,
okay.
Yep. You take care and have a lovely day. Thank you.
You too. Thanks.
Cheers.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye. Bye.